All right. Lesson 33. We're about 60% through with the course, roughly about 2/3 through. And I think we have 50 lessons altogether. So 33 1/3 would be 2/3 through. At the end of today, we'll be about 2/3 through. This is mute stems of the third declension, and we'll be dealing with these. Colossians 1:18 has autos, estin, he, kephale, tu, somatos, tes, ecclesias. He is himself the head of the body, the church, and himself, that's autos is self. In fact, the prefix auto is self, like automobile is not self-propelled. Estin, in English, of course, estin, he is himself the head of the body, the church, of the church. So the body, the church. So the body and the church are one and the same thing. Right. Any question there? All right, now what we're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at mute stems of the third declension. And so the declension of them fall into three classes. Mute stems, we have palatals, that's on the back of your throat, your palate. Labials, that's on your lips. And linguals, that's on your tongue. So these stems have the same endings as other consonant endings, and normally they do, but they show some peculiarities because of some rules of putting letters together. A word in the Greek can end only in the consonants nu, rho, sigma, or a c or a c. So these 5 letters are the only endings that you can have on a Greek word. Consequently, where any other consonant would occur, it's affected. So with some rules that, and we'll get to them in just a minute. Now, this goes back to something we said earlier. In the Greek, they didn't put a space between the letters, the words. In other words, this space would not be there, and this space would not be there. And so they would all be bunched up. But you could tell, for instance, you wouldn't get an end to the word with a consonant. Some of your consonants won't be allowed to be the end of the word. That would be one of the rules that would help them. So the palatals, it's got to be a nu, a rho, a sigma, or a c, or a c. And so those 5 letters is what it has to be at the end of a word. So you look up if it's consonant. There's a sigma. There's a sigma. There's a sigma. That's a vowel. That's a vowel. That's a nu. And there's a sigma. See how your words fit in? So I think that's one way they would tell where the words ended. And of course, we have a different ending for the sigma in the inside the word right here than we do at the end of the word. That would also be another clue because a lot of words end with sigmas. So that would help them to know where the word ended. That might be some of the clues. After you had gotten used to it, you probably would just see those things and just normally they'd be part of your thinking. Any comment there? All right. Euphonic.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It says a word in Greek and only in those consonants. To, he, and ho. Yeah, they're not considered words.
These are consonants. The only consonants that can end the word are these. Other consonants couldn't end the word. That's what he's trying to say.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
So the upsilon and the eta would not, they're not consonants. So
The other vowels.
they're vowels. Okay. All right. Just a little confusing. It's not clearly worded. Okay. But that's what he meant. From my understanding of it. The mutes suffer euphonic changes. And the euphonic is the word U, epsilon, upsilon is good, and then of course sound, phone, from phone. That becomes an English word in combination with the sigma endings of the masculine, feminine, singular, nominative, and dative, and instrumental, locative, plural endings of sigma iota. So that's your sigma iota, that's your locative, in dative, instrumental, locative, plural ending, C. So we'll come down here and look at some words now. So the palatals, kappa, you can feel that on the back of your gamma, chi, and you're using it, you're pronouncing it on the back of your throat. Labials, p, on your lips, pi, beta, phi. If you're using your lips for those. Genitals, tau, delta, theta, sig, zeta. And so those, you can feel your teeth almost vibrate with those. You put a sigma with it, then it becomes a kasi. So a kappa, for instance, becomes, with this plus a sigma becomes C. Gamma plus a sigma becomes C. Chi plus a sigma becomes C. That's what they're telling you. Any one of these three plus a sigma becomes a C. And a tau in one of these four letters plus a sigma becomes a sigma. So you're going to wind up with one of these. You wind up with a bunch of sigmas. Get a sigma for the last one, a C for the next to the last, and a C for the first one. First, second, and last. First, second, and last. Any question there? Now, let's take the word karux, and it's preacher. And so we're going to take that word and we're going to, it's palatal. And we don't know what the ending, what the stem is, just from the nominative case, because this rule kind of throws it out of kilter. So what should it be? Well, we take everything, we take the os ending off, and we take that os ending off right there, and we have our stem. We want to break it there. There's your stem. And so I'll highlight it. That's your stem. Become a kappa, capital kappa, when I broke it apart. So that's your stem. The os ending is your genitive ending. We'll take that out, back to it. So this kappa, and we put a sigma on it to make it nominative, in with the sigma. And so the kappa plus the sigma becomes kasi by this rule up here. Kappa plus the sigma becomes kasi. That's why it became a kasi. Okay. Now, we have os, and then the kappa iota, and ki, ka, and then the vocative and nominative are usually the same. Once in a while they're different, but most of the time they're the same. Plural is case, keruxi, ruxis, and kerukon. So we put an omega with it, so that didn't change it. The stem stayed the same. Everything to the left of the cursor is your stem. And then we have, now then, this kappa becomes a C ending, and that, here's your ending that became right here. That's the dative interlocutive plural. So when we do that, it's kappa plus a C. So we added a kappa plus a sigma iota, and then this rule up here come into play. This thing won't move around, it'll be very good. This rule kappa iota, this rule then comes into play here. It becomes a C. So it becomes a C, and then it retains iota. So it would put, you would put the sigma iota, and then you would, after your kappa, and that would make the sigma, the kappa plus that sigma becomes this, and the iota stays with it. So that's what happened there. That's how we got this C and the iota. That make sense? Any question there? Okay. Now, let's take the word trumpet. Karuk's a preacher is a herald. In the days when a lot of people couldn't read and write, they had town criers. They used to have them in the colonial United States. Some man would go into the street corner and he would shout out and he'd read to the people. The people that were walking around would come around and gather around. He'd read whatever the message the king had or the ruler had or some government official had. And he would read it to them. And that's what this herald is. He's going to herald out and deliver this message. So ours, if we go back now, let's break it again. We want to break it here so you can see where it is. Of course, it become a capital sigma. It does that automatically. So right here, here's your stem right here. Right, that's your stem. And then, so if we take a gamma, let's take our rule, let's slide up here. We take a gamma plus a sigma. We'd had a sigma on this. And so that would have become a Kasi. That's how it become a Kasi. Right? Any comments there? All right. Now, here we have it. And this gamma here. Why didn't it become a Kasi here? I don't know why these retain that form. In the plural, okay, not in the singular they did. It's okay. All right. In the plural it did. The second gamma become with the sigma. So you'd add a sigma iota ending to it. And that's what you're adding down here, here, and here. With a gamma, then becomes Kasi. That's how that worked. Okay. Any comments there?
Would you mind pronouncing the first one, please? The nominative singular for Salpizo?
Salpiques.
Is that Sal? The gamma double, for example, double gamma would be Salpingos, right?
Yes.
Salpingos.
Salpings.
And the double G you'd have sounds like an NG in a way, like Angelos.
Yes. Salpings.
So
I'll pronounce it Salpings. The gamma and the Kasi blend together. There's not a vowel between them.
So would you say that one more time?
Salpigs.
Salpinks.
Sal. Break it there. Pig.
Right.
So two syllables. Salpigs. Accent on the first syllable.
Yeah. With the second half of that word, would it be pi or P iota, papa, or a new sound, an N?
No, because you don't have two gammas there anymore.
But you have the papa sigma
Yeah.
buried inside the Kasi.
Yeah.
And if it were gamma kappa, wouldn't that still require an end sound?
Yes, but the C, I don't think does. So
Okay, so even though it's in there as a combined, it does not change the sound.
I don't think so. Not my understanding.
Okay, good enough. Thank you. That was what I was trying to understand.
So pingy. Now, I'd break this up. So ping, pingy, pingy, pingy. I would pronounce this pingy, pingy.
Okay,
And gamma gamma is NG. That's how I pronounce it.
okay. Thank you. That helps. So the kasi is immaterial as far as changing the sound.
Yeah, it kind of adds a little bit to it. So pigs, you get to see pigs, pigs.
Yeah, it's a difficult sound.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. I'm from southern Greece, so I have a hard time pronouncing it. Okay, that was another bad joke. Okay, like these do sarks. Sarks, we have flesh. It's going to follow the same basic rules. And it was a kappa. And if you get the genitive form, you can find it's got a kappa in it there. Right? That's how the C came about. Declension of the labial stems, only a few labials occurred in the New Testament. The nominative ending C is formed by a combination of the ending sigma plus with a beta or pi of the stem. Least, libos, the southwest wind, least. And so what happens is the beta becomes, with a sigma, it becomes a C. That rule applies. There's your dative plural form of it. Southwest, I don't know that that word is used very much. It probably, I'm suspecting it's found whenever we have Paul sailing one time in the book of Acts. It may be the only time it's found. Right. Pus, that's a lingual. And you're going to produce that with your tongue. Podos. The stem is pod. Podiatrist is a foot doctor, say podiatrist. And podos, pus. And what happens here, let's go back. The upsilon becomes a, let's go back to our rule. We have some other rules that we haven't. Okay. It's podos, and so it becomes pus. The stem is pod. And so we have podos, podi, and poda, and pus. And that's the word foot. Phos, and the word photo, photography, photographic, and so forth. Are just words there come from it. Light, and photograph, graphe, photos, phos and photos, and then graphe to write. That's to make a picture. Photos, photi, phos. It's very interesting here that the nominative and accusative are the same. Without looking up here, you could have told that that was neuter gender. Why? Because the nominative and the accusative forms are the same in neuter. So you wouldn't even have to see that article up there to know that it is, when you see the full declension here. You'd know that it was neuter, because that's the only one where the nominative and the accusative are the same form. Both singular and plural, they're the same. Right? Now, declension of neuter stems in mott. Another very frequent consonant stem is a mott stem. Since these stems are neuter, they have no nominative or singular endings. And as the consonants nu, rho, and sigma are the only possible final consonants. The tau is dropped, leaving the ma, the nominative singular ending. As usual, the stem is found by dropping the os genitive singular ending. So you drop the os singular ending like you do right here, and there's your stem, Pau, Omicron, Delta. That's your stem up here. Okay. He's telling you that's a rule we've already learned. We've used that several times before. And the neuters, nominative and accusative endings are always alike. And that's, of course, in neuters. Right? The nominative, accusative, plural endings is alpha. Right? Let's go back up to this other word up here, neuter. There's a nominative ending in alpha and an accusative ending in alpha and your vocative ending in alpha. Now, the vocative is not always the same as the nominative, but the vast majority of the time it's the same. Okay. Occasionally there's some differences. Here's a common word, pneuma, and pneumatic, our English word pneumatic, air pressure, something having to do with air. Pneuma, and the tau is dropped. So your stem right here would be this right here, everything before the cursor. There's your stem up here. So you put os on it, you'd have the genitive form. So I said drop the os, and that becomes what's left over here is your stem. That's how you find your stem, okay? And take the neuter, the genitive singular or the ablative singular, of course, they have the same form, right? And again, since it's neuter, your nominative and accusative are the same, both in singular and plural. The articles will be the same too, both the nominative and the accusative articles and the words themselves will be the same. So here's a word that's used quite a lot, and there's a whole lot of doctrinal problems with this, okay? Any questions?
Could we back up to photos for just a second?
Post?
Yes. The word, you have podos for the genitive. You chop it off, you have the pod or pod, some would say, for the stem. Not photos, but podos. Sorry. Over on foot. So the genitive is podos. And so the stem would be pod or pod, however you want to say it. Yes. And then to make the nominative, generally you cut off the end of you use the stem and build from there. But because it's a dental, by adding sigma, the delta would drop out. But in this case, you have a upsilon. And you said there's some rule, or is this just irregular? Or is it all dentals that have that the rule applies to? Or
I think we had a rule earlier back in one of the other lessons. I'd have to hunt it down.
okay, I just couldn't think of something that got me there.
Now, the very first lesson, before we get to lesson one, there are several of those rules laid out in those lessons. Then they reiterate when he reiterates them again in the book.
Okay.
As he comes to them.
All right. Thank you. I'll go back and look.
Okay.
I'd forgotten that rule.
Okay. Now, let's look at our vocabulary and air. Notice he gives the genitive form. So you can get this, you get the stem by breaking the omega sigma off. Come on. There it did it. There's your stem right there. So you can drop that off and get it, right? And again, it's an eta. So it's maybe it's a bit irregular there. I'm not sure, but that's your nominative form. And I remember they used to refer to airplanes as AERO. That, have you seen that in writings? And see that you can see that right there, arrow.
I've seen it.
So that was the earlier spelling for aeroplane. And then they changed it airplane. And this is the word air. Hyma, rough reading, hymatose. So your stem again, we'll break it again. You can find your stem out. Just reviewing this. There's your stem right there. So that'd be very helpful in getting it. And so this is blood, okay? And hematology is the study of blood, I believe, hematology, right? Antitupos, this word is found a couple of times in the New Testament. 1 Peter 3:21 is one place it's found. It's found another time, maybe 3 times, but my memory says 2 times. But I know it's 1 Peter 3:21, the like figure. So it's the antitype. And of course, this is the like form or antitype. Baptisma, and what he's done here is the matos is the ending. So put matos here. And so what you would have is you drop the tau off, put the tau in right here, and you'd have the stem. Okay. Baptisma matos. That's your genitive of baptismatos. And so that's, of course, the neuter. Now, there are the 2 words for baptism. It's baptisma and baptisma and baptismos. And mos and ma are different. One is the act and the other one is the result. Okay. So Thayer talks about them, so you can get into Thayer and find the information. Just do a little study in Thayer and you'll find that. I have it laid out in my notes, the file that I sent you, Lexicon and Grammar Notes file. So go into that file and you can see what I'm talking about. It's very enlightening, and you can see it helps to understand what's being said sometimes. Sometimes it's the act and sometimes it's the result. Okay. All right. Gune, and then the stem would be, of course, you break it right there where I've got my cursor. Gunak. That's a Y for a woman. I can't remember how many times. I think it's about 200 times the word is used. And about roughly half and half, I think maybe 90 times one way and 110 the other, something like that. That's translated either Y for woman. Y for woman. Okay. Of course, it could be plural wives or women. And yeah, question or comment. Context has to tell you. I make an argument, and it's an argument I make. It seems reasonable to me that if you have a paragraph in the word, the onair, which is the man, husband word, it can be translated either way. If it's translated husband, it wouldn't be husband and woman, it'd be husband and wife. If it's man, it wouldn't be man and wife, it'd be husband, be man and woman. I argue that much more reasonable. That if it's the word onair is translated husband, then it should be translated wife. It's translated man, and it should be translated woman if they're paired up with one another. That's just my thinking. I don't know that I can prove it. That's just how I see it. Dianoia, that's your mind or your intellect. Okay.
Oh, if I may interject,
Go ahead.
gunaikos, once you have the root, gunaik, how does that get to gune? Is there a rule or is it just irregular in this case?
It's probably irregular.
Okay, just have to memorize it.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I don't know any rules that would make it all those three, that diphthong and the kappa, turn into an eta.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. LPs, it's hope. In Greek, it is broader in meaning than it is in English. In English, the word hope is always used in a positive sense with connotations that are positive. You hope for something good. And it really means you have a reason to expect something. That's what it really means. And in Greek, it could be you have a reason to expect something bad is going to happen. And if you were in prison and you were to be executed the next day, you'd have LPs would be used. You have reason to expect you're going to be executed. Back in the times when they executed people. So, but English, the word hope always has a positive connotation, whereas the LPs is neutral. Could be either positive or negative. Okay. So in Deiknumi, now this word is broken apart sometimes, and it's just Deiknumi, a different word. This is a more emphatic form. It's to show or exhibit something. So you're going to exhibit or show something to be true. Right? Thelema, that's the will. And bulema, and we have this word, and then we have bulema. Let me write it up here. I think that's how we spell it. I mean, might put it as hopefully a symbol. Yeah. I think that's the correct spelling. This word is a synonym of thelema, and one of them is a will that follows inclination, the other is a will that follows deliberation. Okay. So you get into that, that's two wills. And so, okay. And of course, it's neuter, you can tell the article. Thrix, that's hair. Usually it carries that connotation of something that's been fixed up and looks good. This does, okay? And it's feminine gender. That does, and of course, it'd still be feminine if it's a man's hair, okay? Herux, we've had that. That's the herald. It's going to herald out the message for the ruler, usually for some ruler. Nux, night, nuktos. And so the kappa, there's your stem right there. That's your stem, and the kappa and the ta, I guess, go together and they become a kasi. So that night. Ophelates, debtor. This is the idea of someone owing something. And now the verb form of that would be you owe something. Us, otos. And us is ear, otos. And again, there's your stem. And again, something happens on it. I'm not sure. There's probably some other rules. We got to go back and look at them. Plutos. Plutocrat is where the rich person. Plutos is many, much. And so you have riches, okay? And rich people rule. And Pus, we've already had that podos, podiatrist. Sarx, sarcastic, see, sarcastic means to tear flesh is what it means. And so that's flesh. Stoma, that's your mouth. Stomatos. So montos, it would be ta. Put a ta right there and that will be your stem. And so the ma becomes matos for the genitive ending. Soon, zoe, that's a compound word. And let's break it up. It's 3 words. Break it up here. We have soon with zoo, and that's just a connected vowel. Zoe is what it would be life. Poeo, to make alive together with someone. Right. And now the prefix soon with is found a bunch of times in the book of Ephesians. And it's the translation kind of in the English kind of loses it. It's the word with, and he's talking about Jew and Gentile with one another again and again and again. It's pretty emphatic. And soma, body, okay, somatos, and so somat, put a ta on it there, and that'll be your stem, right where my cursor is. Hudatos, water. Our word hydro, our word is hy, and so the rough breathing and the upsilon becomes a y, hydro, and that would be water in English. Caris, and of course put a eat toast, but the iota tapa here, iota ta, and that'll be your stem. So you put the ending on it right here. Karine and Carita, or Carita. So that has 2 different forms, probably much like English. The word vapor, V-A-P-O-R, is American English. The spelling of vapor, V-A-P-O-U-R, is British. Probably very similar to that. Charisma, and gift. He's a very charismatic person. He's gifted in several ways. All right. Pais and paidos. And notice it's hey. So this form can be either masculine or feminine. Okay? So it can be either form. And so the os ending could be masculine or feminine. Remember that. Okay? So this is a word that's a common gender. It can be either masculine or feminine, just a child. And of course, if you have a masculine article, it makes it a boy. Feminine article makes it a girl. Paraptoma, trespass. So you go where you shouldn't be, okay? Pleroma, fullness. All right. And he says this is an idiom, that's a peculiarity of the language. Ace, in the imitation of the Hebrew use, are sometimes used to introduce a predicate nominative. I shall be to you for a father, and he's used besides 2 Corinthians 6:18. Any questions or comments? All right. This is 1 John 5, 6 through 7, modified a bit. So you might find that to be pretty much like 1 John 5, 6, and 7. This down here is Ephesians 2, 1 through 6, modified a bit. Right? again, what he's done is he's modified it when there are words that we haven't put in our vocabulary, some constructions that we haven't covered yet, such as imperative mood or something like that. So he takes it as much as he can, and then he adds a little bit here, makes a change or two, so we can practice on our translation. Okay. All right. Any questions? All right. Let me say this. Let's just work on this for next week. All right. And there are no questions. All right.
Would you mind just one more time explaining how you got Poos out of PODUS? What?
I'm not sure. Okay. I think it would be back to some rules we had earlier. Let me see here. We're on page 127. Let's go back and see if we can find them. All right. Here's some of your rules that they have. These are the I think it's probably going to be somewhere right in here. All right. To go into those. We'll look at it and try to see what I can find. But this is where I'm going to be looking for it. If I can't find it there, I'll try to study it some more in some other books. I have some books that deal with some of these rules. This is where I'm going to be looking for it. What page was I on? Do you remember?
Can't remember. 127 maybe?
107 is mute stems of the third declension. Is that what you're after? The PODUS is 108 would be where PODUS is found, the conjugation. 108.
There we have it. Okay. I'll try to dig it out for you. I've got a couple of books that I bought. One that I bought it and I haven't used it very much. I just bought it about 6 months ago. And that's, I believe, by months. All right. Anyhow, I'll try to dig it out and see what I can find in there. The book I'm going to be looking at is Morphology in Biblical Words. All right, by Mounce, Mounce. Same one that wrote some of the other books we've used. And I'll try to dig it out of that book and see what it has in there. Those are good questions. I'm sorry I don't have the answers for you.
No wonders. I just wondered if there wasn't something in the lesson I missed or something. So
I don't think there's anything in the lesson about it.
Yeah.
It's into a little bit deeper, but it won't hurt us for us to get into it. Okay. So if I can find it, I'll try to do it. We've got a lecture stuff this weekend, so I'll be kind of busy with that. I'll try to do it by next, maybe Sunday afternoon or something. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, you fellas take care. Let me get out of this and stop the recording.